We're back. Well, a couple of us, that is, for Eldredge Extra, Episode 0. What's up, Orleans Firebirds? Ian Nicholas and Dylan Pescatore, your broadcasters once again for 2024. You already heard enough about us. How about we introduce the new face in the equation, our sideline reporter this season, Foster Nicholas. And before you ask, I'm an only child. But Foster, welcome to the family. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
I'm not an only child, but already feel a part of this Orleans family. Super excited to hop on, a big baseball enthusiast and a guy just looking for some high quality baseball and certainly going to get in Orleans.
High quality. I mean, last season was that and so much more for the Birds. Went all the way to the championship series, Dylan. Battled the Braves. You and I were there in the trenches and born one day and Orleans the next. Was that your most exciting memory, or like what do you remember most from last summer?
I just remember all the people that we met and all the great coaches and the great players going in and coming out and seeing some of them get drafted. What a moment that was. Some players that stood out, of course, Derek Clark. What a performance he had last summer. Now at West Virginia, you see these players, you meet them as people, and you leave Orleans as friends. And that's just something that really stood out to me. The friendships that are there and still there. I actually last week I met up with Owen Carpellotti, who was here in Arizona playing some of his college baseball from Georgetown. It's all about the relationships, and that's what I learned last summer.
Yeah, I guess my invitation got lost in the mail. No, I'm just joking. I'm excited to see Owen once again if he makes his way out to the Cape. Excited to see Sean Matson once again, the Harvard pitcher who was the best reliever in all of the Cape last year. He'll be back, and that's really what we're doing here during the offseason is we're going to be interviewing not just future Orleans players or players who are coming back for a second summer. We'll probably have the chance to catch up with Kelly Nicholson. Would like to catch up potentially with new commissioner and Orleans Firebirds / Cardinals legend John Castleberry. We'll be doing some offseason interviews throughout this whole thing. But, Foster, kind of sending it back to you here. What do you know about the Orleans experience? Because I know right before this, Dylan and I were talking like we had just been there a day ago in Orleans. And I don't know if you kind of feel lost in translation a bit, but what do you know about the Cape?
I mean, I think it's still very fresh, and I'm excited to kind of go into it with an open mindset. I think I'm a guy who's always been into the details of baseball, whether that be prospecting or looking at what's next. And it feels like Orleans and the Cape has just been a hub for the next generation of baseball players. And I'm excited to be a part of that and get to see that experience unfold. And I mean, I'm trying to keep it open. I don't know everything yet, and I want it to stay that way, get to experience it for myself for the first time coming up in a couple of months.
Two things you got to know. I mean, I'll let you experience it, right? I'm not going to spoil it. Eldredge, you got to know how to spell that in Eldredge Park. I'll make sure to spell it right when we post this, unlike I did in my first tweet. And it's not being in the Cape, it's being on the Cape.
On
Have you ever been to the Cape?
I've never been to the Cape, never been on the Cape. So
Good job.
looking for that experience. And closest I've ever been is NYC. So not nearly that far east.
Oh, wow. This is gonna, I mean, Dylan and I are lifelong Northeasterners. So is there anything Foster's got to know before coming to the Cape?
Got to know how good the ice cream cafe is, right? And about the Lost Dog Pub and all the great eating places around the Cape. And through one season, we kind of learned, what places do you go to after the game if you're in Bourne, if you're in Hyannis, if you're in Falmouth, wherever place you go. That's the best part. And I'm so excited. We already met some of the other interns as well. Some returning, some not, some new faces. And that's all what it's about. Meeting new people, creating the friendships, and just having a great time through the 40 games that we'll play, and well, hopefully a couple more as well.
Right, Dylan, I'll ask you a quick follow-up there. 44 games last year, 40 games this year. There are some changes this year in year 101, right?
That's right. 4 less games. You're going to have a lot against your division, and that makes each game so much more important. Also, the season was pushed back a couple days. Now it starts on June 15th. The Firebirds will be in Bourne at Doran Park. We'll see them get their rings, and well, hopefully a year from then, it will be the Firebirds getting their rings. But nevertheless, it's going to be a little bit of changes. The year pushed back a little bit. Also, the playoffs were a little bit changed. The first round will only be a 1-game series rather than the semifinals and the finals. So small changes, but overall the experience is going to be very similar, and you can't get much better than what we got last summer.
And again, if you don't really know who we are, if you're just tuning in to Cape Cod Baseball League action, Dylan and I went to high school together in Connecticut. We grew up just outside NYC, which Foster just mentioned. Both New Canaan high school guys. Dylan's a senior at Arizona State. I'm a junior at Syracuse, and Foster is a junior over at Baylor. What do you kind of do over with the Bears, Foster? What is the expertise that you bring? I mean, you're an expert, I know already. I could just tell it, but what's the resume looking like for you?
Just diving in. I do a lot of sports writing. I write for 247 Sports, also write for the student publication here covering football, men's, women's basketball, baseball, and softball. And also on the broadcast teams for ESPN Central Texas on baseball and softball for the Bears.
I'll put you on the spot here. Is there like an accomplishment or a moment, a piece that you've done that you're like, yeah, this is what I want to do more of. This is what I'm really proud of, and maybe something you want to bring to our media team.
Well, I think there was a pitcher last year on on the Baylor baseball team. His name was Will Rigney, coming back from a season-ending injury. His arm had been thrown out 2 back-to-back years. He came back and he threw 6 scoreless in his first game, and kind of just got to talk to him about coming back from that injury. And I think, as media, we have the opportunity to tell those smaller stories and, stuff that's kind of hidden away. And that's a guy who lost 2 years of his life where I wouldn't say lost 2 years of his life, but lost 2 years of experience playing the game of baseball, the game that he loves, and then found a coaching aspect in that, and then found it back on the field. So I think bringing those, in the dark stories, putting those to light. And I think that's kind of my job in Orleans, finding those littler stories and bringing that to the audience.
Right. I mean, Dylan, I'm sure you have an appreciation for some of the Orleans players last season as well. That, yeah, you've got your SEC guys and your ACC guys, like Jack Penny comes to mind. Like, the guy should be really good, and he ends up being really good. Eddie King Jr., another one of those players. But then you've also got those stories of a Joe Oyama or a Derek Clark, who they kind of come out of nowhere. And those are the guys that really make the summer special.
They do, and that's all the credit to head coach Kelly Nicholson and bringing in these guys, knowing their stories. And like you said, Derek, you had some Power 5 guys on the Firebirds, but not as many as the other teams in the league. But that didn't matter when it came to success. You had an Ivy League pitcher in Sean Matson. Derek Clark, who came from Northwood University for 3 years. We didn't even know where that was. We had to look it up on a map.
Thank
Now,
goodness our writer, Brendan Nordstrom, was a Michigan native.
exactly right. And now he's over at West Virginia. So many different stories come to mind. And it's all about, it's a long season. It gets into a little bit of a grind when you reach game 15, 16, and you're getting through each game. But it's all about the people and the stories that they create. That's what makes it so special that, maybe they didn't have the greatest start offensively that they wanted or even on the mound. It's all about how they got there. And that's what we're here for.
We're so spoiled that our hardship is having to spend 2 long months on Cape Cod as interns for a baseball team with future MLB All-Stars on the field. That's the la la land that we live in, and it certainly was a dream last season for Orleans. Came 1 game short, but still an unbelievable season. Dylan, I guess the last question for you. I'm going to be asking you plenty of questions again this summer. I've known you for over half a decade at this point. You're probably sick of me, but why do you want to come back to this media team, to Orleans, and to the league?
Well, like you said, you couldn't have a better summer than last year. And even with the team winning all those games, even if they didn't, I would love to come back because of the people in charge of the Firebirds when it comes to Sue Horton and Bob O'Donnell and Lane Brookman and everyone who runs and Nancy Nickerson and all the people in the organization. They treated us amazingly. You couldn't, you came to the field every single day. Everyone had a smile on their face and was happy to be there. And how couldn't you be? Great weather, great baseball, a great stadium, and just an overall great experience. The players and the coaches were so great to us that if you said no, it was you were lying, right? And
Right.
I'm sure that you say the same thing and think the same way.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the games at Veterans Field with the fog and then the rain out on July 4th, the weather was fantastic. No shade to Chatham. It's just the field was cursed that year, and Chatham was the best place to maybe play on the Cape outside of Eldredge, of course. But Foster, yeah, I'll spin the same question to you. Obviously, this is your first year on the Cape, but why do you want to be on the Cape?
I think just looking for more experience, doing something I love and doing it with people who also share that same passion. And I think that's something that I saw in Orleans more than a couple other places out there. I think this is just a tight-knit family, like we've already said. I've only been kind of in the process for a couple of months, but I already feel like one of the main guys on the team.
Wow, look at that. I guess we've done a good job of not scaring him off just yet. Is there one story? Because I know you've got a buddy, one of the Katuitt broadcasters, Joe Pratt, who's a really good friend of ours that, was on the Cape last summer. Is there something that he's told you that's really sticked with you and gets you kind of like excited as the gruels of school go on at Baylor? You're like, yeah, I've got the Cape to go to, and that's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, his was don't go to the Chipotle and find something else. That was the suggestion he made. But no, it's just been like the people you meet, and I think that's something I'm really excited for. An introvert at heart, but an extrovert as we move forward. Excited to meet more people and kind of get out there and spread the joy of the game.
Wow. I think we got to end it on that. And that's deep. That is more profound. And that's why he's going to be telling the stories on our broadcast this year. The Birds Broadcast Network, of course. You want to tune in all summer long, you can. You can follow us right here on YouTube. You can also see what we're doing on both Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, or Instagram, and Facebook too. Orleans Firebirds. That's the place to follow. This has been our, first official episode 0 of Eldredge Extra. We're going to start doing player interviews, coach interviews, Cape Cod Baseball League personnel interviews, everything under the sun throughout the spring. So stay tuned for some more action. But for Dylan Pescatore, Foster Nicholas, and Ian Nicholas, we'll see you soon.